Howdy, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. This is the Tales from the Waystone Summer Reading Program.
We are your hosts, Will and Phoenix. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the fourth installment of our series on Travis Baldree's Bookshops and Bonedust. Hey, that's the name of the book, where we'll be reading chapters 18 through 24.
All right, before we begin, you know the spiel. You'd think after 4 or 5 or whatever, how many years we've been doing this, that I would know the spiel, but apparently I don't. I kind of just memory hole everything we say. Each week we'll be examining a section of Bookshops and Bonedust and figuring out what they can text. Sometimes we focus on something we've learned this week, and we'll share something recommended this week, and we will also wrap things up with a notable quotable, which we've already probably said before this point. I'm just going all Brennan Lee Mulligan. It's fine.
Yeah, it's all right.
They've all heard this. Before we begin, let's get some disclaimers out of the way. First of all, we are in no way affiliated with Travis Baldree or his publisher, Tor Books. Second of all, our discussions naturally assume that you have read through. That's incorrect. Chapter 20-something, 5, I think, of Bookshops and Bonedust. If you haven't, please read it and come back. Or don't. I'm not your boss. Alrighty. Just know there are spoilers. We good?
We're good.
Also, we're to our community. Please be kind to yourselves, one another, and the creators of the worlds of exploring. No one listens to this part anyway.
Alrighty. So let's start off with chapter 18. Viv's been trying to be a little more intentional about her healing, and I think this is an important thing. Earlier, she'd been really kind of rushing things.
She'd been cavalier. She'd been like, but I'm perfectly capable. I should be perfectly capable. Why am I not perfectly capable? Okay, let's ignore this and just pretend I'm perfectly capable. And being on multiple subreddits where people are recovering from major surgery, I'm going to be honest here. A lot of people are like this. A lot of people wind up thinking that they are superhuman almost, or that recovery only applies to other people.
They're the exception.
Yeah. So when I tell people how heavy a grocery cart is, multiple times in the same subreddit, because by the time the next person's come around, that's been buried for hours or a week or a month or whatever. But like explaining to someone that a grocery cart empty weighs anywhere between 40 pounds and 70 pounds, and I promise you that the weight restriction that has been told to all of these people is somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 pounds to 25 pounds is your weight limit. You can't do anymore. That's why you are told not to do like vacuuming.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's that. The second surgery that I had didn't have a weight restriction. Like I wasn't told not to do stuff, but at the same time, your body will tell you when you are just out of it.
Yeah, and I think the thing that Viv does here that's smart is she recognizes that she does need to push herself a little bit.
Yes. That is another thing, is like, you can't just stay immobile.
Right.
You have to get up and you have to move and you have to walk and you have to test. What I'm saying is, don't push to the point of re-injury.
Yeah. So there's something I notice here. Like instead of saying, okay, I walked 1 mile yesterday, so I'm going to walk 1.25 miles today. It's more, okay, I walked 1 mile yesterday, so I'm going to continue walking 1 mile until I can walk further than 1 mile. Instead of focusing on the benchmark, she's focusing on where her body is telling her the limit is. And that's something that she wasn't doing before. Before, she was just denying flat out that her body had any limits.
And it can be really tough because you feel like you're capable of doing things, but you don't know where the limit got changed to. It's like, so in D&D, which by the way, if you're listening to us talk about Bookshops and Bonedust and you have no knowledge of D&D at all, the heck you say? Like, whatever. But in D&D, so you have a maximum hit point pool, which means that once you reduce your hit points from that maximum to 0, you're rolling death saving throws. There are conditions that will reduce your number of actual max hit points. Going through a major surgery reduces your max hit points. And so while you might feel great when you have your max hit points, they deplete to 0 faster.
The same amount of damage that you were taking before instead of, a 10-point hit being a fifth of your overall hit point total, could now suddenly become half.
So going grocery shopping doesn't seem like it's that strenuous, but it is.
This is also a bit where we see the relationship between Viv and Galena deepening as well. The two of them start practicing their fighting moves together. Even though they use different styles, different weapons, and have different combat roles, they still find that the companionship actually helps. And this is, I think, something that's important in general, whether we're talking about combat, like martial arts, or even something as simple as playing music or something like that. The act of practicing with someone else really can be incredibly beneficial because it helps you to hold yourself accountable, and you have someone to actually give you an outsider perspective on things that you otherwise can't get.
Speaking of this, we're both learning sad but true. Would you like to practice with me at some point soon?
Sure.
Cool. I also see a value in what we call parallel play. It is something that is discussed with like little children where they don't play with each other, but they play around each other. So they're not being antisocial or anything. They're doing their own thing in companionship with another. And you and I do this. We both build Lego. They're our own separate Lego sets because generally the ones that have multiple booklets and multiple whatevers aren't equitable.
Yeah. One person is building a castle and the other person is building the outhouse.
I was going to say the latrine. You and I sometimes do share a brain cell, and I don't like it. Because as much as I actually do like that we sometimes have the same wavelength, it just means that one or both of us think that we can just think a thing and the other person will know it.
So while the two of them are practicing, Galena starts asking Viv a little bit about how she feels about Melee.
And this, I think, is more about, are you going to settle down? Are you going to stay? Are you going to stop adventuring? You've told her that you're going back, right? And Viv's response is like, of course I've been open and honest with this person. The two of us are having fun. The two of us are having a good feeling and good time together. But she knows where my heart lies. I'm not hiding that from her.
I think also it's always good to have that kind of check in because I think Viv thinks that she's being open and honest and everything, but I don't think she's fully aware of what happens when you get yourself into a deeper relationship with someone sometimes. And two people can go into a relationship thinking, oh yeah, it's going to be just a fling, and
somebody catches feelings more than the other.
Right.
And that becomes unbalanced, which, it's tough being on both sides of that.
Absolutely. It's something where, again, Galena is performing that valuable role of being the person who's there to kind of be the reality check.
Yeah, I still think, though, that Viv hasn't fully explored that.
I think Viv has thought, oh yeah, this will be fun and easy. No one will get hurt.
I think people will get hurt.
Yeah.
We've read the one that takes place in the future, so we do know that certain characters don't show up.
Well, and adventuring is not a zero risk endeavor. It is something with hazard pay. Yeah, there's risk involved in her chosen profession. And I think also because this is young Viv who has not necessarily a whole lot of experience in the way the world works, is probably also maybe being a little more cavalier about this relationship.
And other people's feelings.
Than she's aware of. I think she honestly believes all these things. I don't think she understands what that really means.
I think that's fair.
Like I say, it's good that she's got Galena here to sort of act as that reality check. Galena is a lot of things. She can be abrasive, she can be entitled, she can be kind of a brat, but she's also someone who's definitely willing to hold the people she cares about accountable. And she does so here without judgment or anything. She just says, keep an eye on that.
Now, I'd also like to point out that it's not just Melee. It's also Fern. It's also Galena.
Yeah.
Viv is making friends and close relationships and family, because let's be honest, Fern is becoming family. Galena is going to become family.
Yeah.
Not a spoiler because we already read the previous book. But I think she doesn't really understand how many people are going to be sad and how tough it's going to be to remove herself from this little pocket of cozy that she's surrounded herself with. Even as there is danger and there are baddies and whatever.
It's almost like camp relationships
Yes.
where you're gone into this little camp for maybe a week or two and you strike up friendships and sometimes more than friendships. And they seem like the most important thing in the world because you're away from everything else.
You're isolated.
You're isolated from the rest of your day-to-day life. You have this shared experience and it can feel very intense, and you can know that, yeah, there's an expiration date on this. Like, oh yeah, when by next Saturday, we're going back to our regular lives or whatever.
Same thing happened to me when I volunteered for the Star Trek exhibit when I was about 13, 14 years old. I made friends with so many people. It was the first time I had friends that were girls. And speaking of that, have you noticed how many of the characters in this specific book are women?
Mm-hmm.
I am so happy to see an adventuring book that is about women where we don't just have antagonistic relationships. Yeah, the law enforcer, there's strife there, right? There is a antagonistic relationship there, but it's not catty, it's not gossipy, it's not the way that a lot of people write women, and it's for the reason of law enforcer, not
Bench. We also see women in many roles, whether that is in more caretaking roles or more protector roles or provider roles. They can occupy pretty much anything along the spectrum.
And I gotta say, like, Fern absolutely does remind me of the person who runs the tiny little bookshop next to the Sylvia Beach Hotel. It will always be in my head, the Sylvia Beach Hotel, even though it's the Hotel Sylvia now. But, I really appreciate that it's not even all lampshaded, right? It's not, hey, look, we're doing a good because we have so many women in roles in this book. It's just they're allowed to exist. Lesbians are allowed to exist without any comment. There is no male gaze, despite the fact that this is written by a man. I don't see anything here that goes, oh, ew. This was written so that a guy could get off. Ew. No, they're very sweet. They're very, not explicit, but I'd also really appreciate that if it was an, differently sexed couple.
Well, and I think the thing that I get out of it is there is no default. Like, relationships just kind of are. And, some fall into the heterosexual relationship pattern. Some fall into an LGBTQ fashion. Like, you can basically put any kind of relationship in there. And it's not really a comment on these characters as people. Like, nobody goes around and says, as a gay orc,
Right. I'd also, though, like to point out that it doesn't feel like you could just replace Meili with a guy.
No.
It wouldn't be the same. They wouldn't have the same kind of relationship. This is clearly two women in a relationship. It doesn't feel like you could just replace one piece with another, but it feels natural and not, let's give me a gold star for having a gay relationship in this book.
Right. I think what it is doing here is just saying people have relationships, and those relationships can take all kinds of different forms. And as long as they are between loving, consenting people, that's all for the good.
I'd even say just consenting people.
Yeah. But it's focused on, seriously, just, we're not going to make a thing about who it is other than these specific people. It's very egalitarian. It's taking this idea that we don't have to assume a default relationship style. We don't have to assume a default orientation, and it can have all of these different forms.
Another thing I appreciate, though, there's no angst in the characters about, oh God, am I gay?
This isn't a coming out story.
No. And that makes me feel good. But anyway, I would like to move on because there's quite a bit of meat to go on.
Yes, we haven't even gotten to the principal murder.
Dun dun dun, spoilers. So before we get to the murder,
We find Viv and Fern hanging out in the bookshop and having a bit of a conversation.
Well, first of all, Viv needs a new book, and so Fern provides a mystery book. I want to point something out here. First book, very adventuring. First book coincides with very adventuring section of this book. Next book, very romantic. Hey, look, Viv's in a romance now. Next book, mystery, murder mystery. Guess what's going to happen?
I'm going to guess there's going to be a mystery.
A murder mystery. Anyway, I really like the literary devices being used here, where the books that are being recommended within this book are coincided with the genre as it morphs in this book.
So I have something to say about this. So I think what we're also seeing here is Viv putting herself into the mindset of different types of protagonists.
Kind of like being on a holodeck?
Little bit, yeah. Like she's kind of putting herself into the shoes of people that she didn't think she was and discovering parts of herself that she didn't know existed. Like, so it was very easy for her to jump into the life of an action hero, like a sword swinging action hero. It took a little more for her to start seeing herself as a romantic protagonist. And now that she's able to see herself as that, she's able to actually put herself into the position of a romantic protagonist, engaging in a romance. Now she's thinking of herself as a detective. She had never thought of herself as the brains of a group before. I mean, it's not that she's stupid or anything. She's just never thought of herself that way. And now she's probably going to then start thinking of things like a detective because she's discovering parts of herself that she didn't know existed. This is the way that fiction can help us find sides of ourselves that we didn't know we had. It can let us try things on, see the world from different perspectives, and see ourselves from different perspectives as well. And so it allows Viv to find different calls to adventure, to find different ways to approach something. Like chapter 1, Viv really wouldn't have been terribly interested in any problem that she couldn't solve by swinging her saber at it, because that was what she believed she was good at, and she believed that was the extent of what she was good at. Now she's starting to realize that, one, she has more to offer than just her sword arm. She can have meaningful connections with people. She can care about other people's well-being. She can, do all of these things with and for other people. And then this new persona that she's exploring is someone who can piece together a mystery, who can unravel a plot, who can also at the same time have that element to build something more long-term.
And 2?
Damn it, I did it again.
I love you.
I love you too.
Anyway, so the next part, speaking of people that she's making relationships with, not really preparing themselves for her leaving, Fern is feeling kind of low, useless. The things that are bringing her joy right now are bringing other people joy. So bringing books to Viv and getting to talk about it is just making her light up. And I super identify with this whole thing. Quite honestly, like, part of the reason why I like the Discord and why I haven't given up on it, even though it's pretty dead, is that I like it when y'all bring me stuff like, hey, I went to a convention, or hey, I just read this book and I want you to read it, or, any number of other conversations. I consistently post memes. Most of them are Lord of the Rings memes. Some of them are A Song of Achilles memes, like today. If you like Greek mythology, this is not a surprise to you, this particular meme. But I would love to have more conversations with more of our listeners about more of the books that they enjoy. Please recommend anything that floats your goat. I love, even if I am not going to get to all of them, all of the recommendations and all of the suggestions. I go through so many different phases of what I need for entertainment, and it just makes me really happy to have these conversations with other like-minded geeky folk.
May I borrow the book real quick here?
Yep.
Let's see. So there's a quote here that I really resonated with, and it really made me think of our relationship. I don't know if I can explain it, but watching you read what I give you, putting a book in your hands and seeing what happens to you once you put it back down, I can't make you understand how that gives me something I didn't know I had to have. Like that right there, just it encapsulates why we do this podcast, why we started doing it in the first place, why we continue to do it here even 5 years later.
Even with a tiny audience.
Yeah.
Even though, like, to be real, our Patreon, which wasn't super big at all, has shrunk a little bit, which is fine. This isn't a thing that I do to support myself. It's not really even a thing that I do to be self-sustaining. It's something I do because it brings me joy. Speaking of that, though, if you're a patron at all, you're going to get early access. Now, sometimes early access means the day before. Sometimes it means like the Friday before. And sometimes it might mean like a couple of weeks before. Who knows? But just letting you know that because of the way that things got adjusted, it doesn't say so on the Patreon yet, but it will be that, and I'm already giving everybody who pays even $1 or whatever our lowest one is, early access to the pod. Just a heads up, just as a gift. But yeah, the whole point of why we even do this is definitely encapsulated in that.
I just remember a bit that you told me many years ago. You said, when you gift me a book, you gift me magic. I found that incredibly charming, and that's really stuck with me all those years. And this little bit in the book here, like, I think that really hits that same vibe. And, we learn a little bit about what drives Fern in all of this. She isn't just running a bookstore because it's what the family did. She's running a bookstore because she loves sharing books with the people in her community. Now, she maybe needs to work a little bit on the storefront side of things.
Yeah.
Bookstores can't exist on vibes alone.
Yeah. If doing what you love and not working a day in your life actually was feasible.
Yeah, like businesses require risk.
Yes.
Inherently. Even if you're doing it nonprofit, like, you still have to be able to keep the lights on. You still have to pay rent. You still have to pay taxes. You still have to cover payroll. Like, all of that stuff has to happen. And so you've got to be able to make it at least sustainable. You don't have to prioritize mega profits over everything else, but you do have to think of a way to make it so that it can sustain itself. And so far, Fern has not been doing that side of things very well.
No. Well, this conversation gets interrupted rudely by Galena.
Most things do get interrupted rudely by Galena. I don't think she knows another way to interrupt.
The man in gray is dead.
Galena didn't kill him.
Neither did Viv. He's out on the sand, next to a shack, dead. Dead.
And interestingly, all of his magical implements are still on him. His gold, his purse, still on him. So whoever attacked him didn't do it with the intent to rob him.
I mean, I'm sure he didn't make friends.
No, he doesn't seem like a very friendly fellow either.
But, of course, Galena and Viv know he's dead before the gate wardens do.
And they also know enough to know that they're probably easy prime suspects.
Though, turns out, Iridia does not suspect them at all. You're not that stupid. Also, seriously, I just found you over his dead body. You're not that stupid. However, before the gate wardens arrive, Viv does find the magical satchel.
She's really curious what's in it, since this guy's been hauling it around everywhere, and it's something that he'd actually taken the time to hide in said shack before his death.
Well, we assume that it was him. It could be a situation where the murderer hid it and, was going to come back for it, but didn't get a chance to. Although, speaking of coming back for it, Viv shoves it back, doesn't let the gate wardens get it, hopes that the person that is left in charge of trying to find it doesn't, and he doesn't. And then goes back and, Galena goes back and retrieves it.
So when they get it back to the Thistlebur bookshop...
Fast forward. Turns out there is a skeleton in there. One that can come back to life-ish as a homunculus with the application of Bonedust.
Hey, that's the name of the book.
Or half of it.
Well, it's Bonedust in a bookshop.
Yes. And it's a magical servant, which makes all of the girls, Galena, Viv, and especially Fern, very uncomfortable. That this creature that seems sentient, that seems like it should have its own free will, it only exists to be a servant.
It's the robot problem. Like, droids are really cool in Star Wars. And then you start wondering about, wait, what happens when they do something that they're not programmed to do? Or they decide that they don't want to be servants to biologicals.
Or just to this one biological.
It gets really creepy and weird if you start thinking about it too long.
Like, how do we have defectors?
Yeah. And what we learn here is that Satchel, as the homunculus prefers to be called.
Oh my goodness, they named him after the container he's contained in.
He is the personal homunculus of the dreaded necromancer Vereen.
Dun dun dun.
So this puts everybody in a bit of a dilemma.
Right. They like him just fine. He's actually quite nice and personable, scary looking.
He's helpful, he's personable, and at the same time, they know that he doesn't really have a choice to be otherwise. And it's pretty clear that he is still, to some extent, bound to Vereen, not necessarily just strictly through arcane means, but also through fear. And so Fern obviously is like, look, if you want to hang out here, you're more than welcome to. I care about you. I think you're great. You don't have to sweep. You don't have to clean if you really don't want to.
There is an interesting thing here, though. When a creature has free will and decides that they want to be serving, where do you draw the line of, but you don't have to do that, versus, well, I guess if that's what you want to do, I can't have a problem with it.
Right. I think also Fern has a bit of pride that is playing into all of this as well. Obviously, she does need help around the shop.
From a taller person.
Also from someone who just has the energy to keep things clean.
I know that I have a hard time keeping things clean because energy is hard to come by.
I think Fern has, she has elements of depression and anxiety to her.
Yeah.
That I think sometimes make it harder for her to just do things all by herself. And she's been pretty isolated for a while up until Viv showed up.
Overwhelm is real.
There's this story that she tells herself about what she ought to be able to do on her own. And unfortunately, her life, as it actually is, doesn't look like that ought. That story isn't mirrored. And having help with taking care of housekeeping around the shop isn't something that she feels like she should need.
I think that that's a problem that a lot of us have. I would gladly hire someone to take care of the day-to-day, or like, I only need it done once a month cleaning. But that hiring of another person is also work that I haven't had the energy to look into. So yeah, there's just things that are difficult in different ways. And I think a lot of us who are dealing with mental illnesses or dealing with just differences in how our energy expenditure works have a hard time accepting that we can't do the things that we ought to be able to do.
Or that we think we ought to be able to do.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think that's part of what Fern's dealing here with. So Satchel wants to help out. It's really hard for her to accept that offer. And it's easier if she feels like there's something that he wants that she can give him.
But what he wants is to surf.
Right.
And that feels icky.
It does.
Look, to continue on, Satchel comes up with his own routine of helping around the shop when it's just Viv or Galena or Fern and, the Griffith that is trying really hard to just chew on his ankles.
Because, of course, pot roast has a bone thing.
Oh, I wouldn't say it that way, but too late. Phrasing. But he kind of collapses back into his satchel when anyone else enters the shop. It makes me wonder how soon are they going to run out of Bonedust to bring him back, because that's what it requires.
Well, there is a graveyard full of skeletons that they can grind up if they need to.
Up above in a sand dune.
Yep.
That seems... Can I just say that little bit, which I am not going to explain, but like that little bit just sounds very much like foreshadowing. It's foreshadowing. Anyway, as a person who didn't read the book and I'm looking at the person who did. But I do think that maybe there's something to be said about how sometimes to let someone have free will, you have to feel uncomfortable if that free will looks different to the person experiencing it than the person who's encouraging it might like.
I mean, the fact is, in order for free will to mean anything, it does have to entail the ability to be uncomfortable around another person.
So, not the same situation, but similar situation or similar feeling. I am very particular about the way that my stuff is touched and handled. Things that are precious to me, things that I don't want broken, things that I'm a little bit nervous about when people are like, hey, can I use a plastic glass instead of a glass in your house? Okay, cool. And then they reach for a glass. Because in this particular case, our GM has told me that they feel nervous having a glass and that they're going to drop it. And I'm like, I never thought you were going to drop it, but now I do. I'm only nervous because you told me, you telegraphed to me that you think you're going to break my glass. I didn't think you were going to. But the same thing, like watching you decide how to handle some dishes stuff when the same behavior has resulted in sometimes things dropping and or breaking and or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I gotta shut my eyes and go away because I know that you're fine. I know it's okay. You're doing a thing that like that. When the bowl jumped out of your hand, it was a fluke. You know, it doesn't mean that doing that ever again is a bad thing. But my situation, like in my body, is that I am uncomfortable. Or like you choosing to do something with a thing that is yours in a different way than I would choose to do something with something that is mine. It's okay. If you do something with something that is yours, that is different than how I would want to be done.
Yeah. Well, I think generally when we're talking about any kind of open society, being able to exist in a certain degree of discomfort is important. You know, when there are a bunch of people around, you have to be willing to put up with stuff that you don't otherwise like, that you would never willingly choose to do yourself. You have to be okay with people up to a certain point making decisions that you wouldn't make, because we're all individual people with our own ideas about how things ought to be. We have to respect other people's agency to make those decisions for themselves. And it's not always easy, especially when you have people who have different definitions of what constitutes a happy life. So for Fern, a happy life is one of self-determination where, you know, she can give books to people she cares about and talk about it afterwards with them. For Satchel, though, at least right now, happiness is helping out around the shop and sweeping up and cleaning. Fern obviously wants him to be able to choose to do something else if that's what he really wants to do, but it feels really weird to have someone asking to do something helpful like this. And so she kind of has to live with that discomfort for now.
Now, as is normal, Viv's feelings of high alert ebbed slowly over the following days. Now, she'd been alert because she's like, well, we have Vereen's servant. This isn't good. Where's Vereen? So she's just like on high alert. She's made sure that the gate wardens are taking things a little more seriously than she thinks that they would have otherwise. But slowly over time, like you can't keep on hyper focus all the time or hyper awareness, like readiness all the time. It's like stretching out a rubber band and keeping it stretched. Have you ever done this thing where you've gone back to a rubber band and it won't contract? That's because the new normal of that rubber band, the new normal state, is stretched.
Yeah, it's called alert fatigue, where if you're constantly getting interrupted by alerts of things going on, and
it's why I turned off alerts on Slack.
Right. And they're continually not actually things that are truly emergencies that require urgent action. Eventually, you start to discover that with every increasing false alarm or every moment where something doesn't happen, or the thing that you're trying to stay alert to doesn't happen, you cannot help but start to slack off a little bit. And it may not even be to the point where you think, oh, I'm slacking. it becomes routine. And then after a while, you start to forget why you were alert for it in the first place. And then after that,
Things just go back to normal.
you just kind of subside.
Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much what's happening. Now, charming thing. Viv and Fern having more conversation regarding the state of the shop and talking about how now it looks more organized, things look better, things look financially a little bit better. Not great, but a little bit better, to the point where Fern can actually buy new books for the shop, but she doesn't know what to do with the old books. The idea to, and I know I've seen this at a bunch of bookstores more recently than not, is to wrap them up in paper, write a short description. If you're interested in this, a very cryptic, brief description. If you like this book, you might like this book. And it's usually books that people aren't picking up, or books that the bookseller is like, I want people to read this. And I've only really had one experience buying one of these wrapped up books, and it was one that I was looking for. It was a book that I was looking for. And we were at Barnes and Noble, and they had to go find the copy that they know that they had, but it was wrapped up. And that was The Spear Cuts Through Water. And I need to read that. I've been in a little bit of a reading slump. It's been harder for me since the last surgery, which was about a month ago, and it's frustrating. But that doesn't mean I'm in a narrative being fed into my face slump, because I've been watching a lot of Critical Role and been enjoying that, or like a creative slump, because I have definitely been working on crochet projects. It's just that it's been harder for me to concentrate on reading, which is sad for me.
Yeah.
I want to get back into it. But I think it's a charming idea. I like the mystery around it. I'm going to pick up something that I don't know what it is, and hopefully I'll enjoy it. I like that aspect of it's almost like a gift.
Yeah. I think it kind of fits with the way Fern shows that she cares about people. Like, not to get all pseudo-psychological or whatever, but the whole idea about different love languages, and a lot of it is unscientific. It's not necessarily something that always bears out, but
I think it gives people a framework to talk about things rather than being a be-all end-all to relationship psychology.
Yeah. So one of the things that I observe here is that Fern is someone who likes to use gifts to show that she loves them. So when she gives Viv a book, she takes pleasure in doing that. It is something that she delights in. She likes it when she's able to figure out what somebody else likes. Like, so when she discovers that Pitt is a repeat customer coming back for more poetry, she's delighted by this, to realize, oh, hey, I helped somebody find something that they delighted in. I really like this. I never would have guessed.
So I have a question. In this world, do books have synopses on the back?
I don't know.
Or are they all pretty much like my dad's books from like 100 years ago that he was given as an infant, like his parents were given?
Right. Are they all leather-bound books or do they have blurbs on the back, or the dust cover?
Is there a dust cover?
Right. I don't know. Although, like, I think at least to some degree there might be, because we do have fairly detailed cover art on at least a few of the books, particularly the romance ones.
Fair.
So that implies to me, at least, that some of these probably have something on the back.
I don't know, because a lot of the books that I have that were my dad's do have really pretty detailed illustrations on them.
They may not. I don't think it really ever says.
But I'd say it's harder to sell books if no one knows what's in them. And that this particular idea of wrapping up a book and giving a at least cryptic idea of what's in it might be very, very useful. It's kind of like the to-go cups in Legends and Lattes.
Yeah. The thing that gets me, though, I really kind of hate that don't judge a book by its cover thing. But if you're not allowed to actually look at what's inside, or you don't know where to start, what are you supposed to judge it off of? Like, the cover has to at least tell you something.
Okay, so here's where the don't judge a book by its cover thing breaks completely. completely. You know what's really popular right now? Sprayed edges. You know why that's popular? It's eye-catching. It has nothing to do with the quality of the book. I have the most gorgeous cover art and spray edges with a description of this book being exactly up my alley. And it was a steaming pile of hot garbage. And I am not telling you what the name of it is unless you come over to the Discord and actually ask me. But it is beautiful. It is lovely. And the only reason I bought it was because it had a good description and it looks pretty. And so I know you shouldn't judge by the cover because that is a pile of hot garbage covered in just beautiful wrapping. But there are a bunch of other books that are getting this same lovely treatment. And I kind of need to call out. We pre-ordered the pretty matches the rest of our series version of Brigands and Bread Knives, which won't even come out for a year because it matches the other stuff and it's pretty. Am I going to buy the mass market paperback of it also so that I don't ruin the pretty one? Yes. But sometimes you just gotta okay, there's a cool thing on the cover. That's intriguing. And if the cover artist has done their job well, then I think that that's perfectly okay.
I agree. Loudly agreeing. I think you don't maybe judge a book by its cover, but you also, the cover is what at least draws you in.
Yes, it's a marketing tool.
And as much as it may pain anyone who's done anything creative or in engineering or anything, you do have to find a way to market it to people. It's not just something that's self-evident from the first glance.
I do user interface design and graphic design. It has to look good.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I'm probably going to at least redo some of the marketing material for the podcast. Just at this point, the first 4 years-ish, totally Kingkiller. Last year, summer reading program. Do I have any hope for the next book of the Kingkiller Chronicle? Not. I don't think it matters. I am perfectly happy to change this. I'll be cheeky and probably cross it out with a crayon look and just write speculative fiction and say it's a speculative fiction reread podcast. Because that's pretty much what it's becoming. But I think we can get to the very, very end of this. Viv is sitting at the bar with her nose in the book that she was just recently given, oblivious to the world when who should appear next to her?
It's Iridia,
who is here to ply Viv with alcohol to get Viv to talk to her. There is the guise of to warn her about all of the things to do with Vereen. And reading between the lines, I also see that Viv might not be able to hold on to other knowledge, like about Satchel or about the man in gray's name, which is Balthus.
Yeah.
Because she almost blurted it out without the alcohol. I just don't see this turning out very well for her.
Yeah. I think when you're dealing with the police in general, you either say nothing or everything.
I think she's about to say everything. But that's just me.
But it is worth noting here that Iridia is not the stereotypical lazy town guard. She actually does care about the well-being of the town, and she is vigilant and observant. The same may not be able to be said for the rest of her staff, but she does keep an eye on what's happening, and she's got a little bit of suspicion around Viv, primarily because murder hobos are not great for town peace. That doesn't mean, though, that she's going to just ignore Viv's warnings or try and make the problem go away. She is able to live with the discomfort from all of this. She knows that there's something out there that, as much as she dislikes Viv, she's going to have to see what she can figure out from Viv, because it's her job to protect the town.
I think with that, we can move on to our notable quotables.
Yep, it's your turn.
All right. So, my notable quotables, this time I actually took photos of them so that I would remember what they are.
Smart.
All right. So, first of all, of course I'd find you two here. Iridia knows the troublemakers. It's really easy to know the troublemakers in a town that is very, very small. There's also, besides, I don't think either of you are stupid enough to hang around the corpse of someone you murdered.
There's a backhanded compliment.
Should I revise my judgment? There is also, I'm happy to disappoint you. All of these really are Iridia.
Iridia is definitely someone who is smart, a little bit unafraid to be edgy, and unafraid to be the bad guy if she has to.
The next one I have is actually Fern. Now, where the fork are you? Because she's looking through her books trying to find a piece of information. And apparently she gets more foul-mouthed when speaking softly. And then we kind of touched on this, but we didn't really touch on this. When the bones are just taken out of the satchel and they don't know what the heck, Pot Roast just goes to town on one of them and starts chewing on it. And Fern just goes, not surprised, but
Fork!
Pot Roast, no! And then, so much like when Allie Beardsley is put into a group full of Chaos Muppets, they feel like they have to be the voice of reason, or at least they are the most reasonable voice in the room. Where if they're in a room full of Order Muppets, they can go crazy. For a few moments, Viv felt a nagging need to be the voice of reason. But in the end, there was no way in all 8 hells that she could leave well enough alone. I appreciate that one so much.
That's a pretty good one.
But yes, that is my notable quotables for this week.
Alrighty. So that brings us to what did we learn this week? So this one is one that I found on Ars Technica, one of my favorite sites. And so this one is about the effect of swearing on your physical strength.
I do know that there is an effect of swearing on how much pain you feel.
Yes, this is actually by the same author.
Ah.
So basically, Richard Stevens, who wrote the paper or co-authored the paper, hypothesizes that because swearing serves as a form of disinhibition, swear words help overcome other mental setbacks as well. In many situations, people hold themselves back, consciously or unconsciously, from using their full strength. By swearing, we throw off social constraint and allow ourselves to push harder in different situations. Swearing is an easily available way to help yourself feel focused, confident, and less distracted, and go for it a little more. So here's how they chose to test this hypothesis. They ran 2 experiments where they asked participants to select either a swear word that they normally use after bumping their head and a more neutral word to describe an inanimate object like a table. And then they had the subjects perform chair push-ups while chanting the swear word or the neutral word every 2 seconds. Fork, 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 fork. The subjects who swore during the task could support their body weight much longer than those who merely repeated the neutral word, and subjects who swore also reported increases in their sense of psychological flow and self-confidence.
You know, this might actually explain something for me. I felt so much more stress being around people who I don't swear around when I had to kind of temper everything when we went on a vacation with all of your family, pretty much. I had to watch my mouth, which meant I had to, and some of that is because there was a 5-year-old and an infant around. But even in instances where there weren't little ones, little ears nearby, you know, we both kind of kept our swearing to a minimum unless we were at the place where we were staying away from everybody else. And it's not that I think that all of your family would be appalled at my normal level of swearing, but some of them would be. And it's part of my natural just flow of how I talk. And I realize it more when there's people around me who just don't swear as much, or that there are new people. And I'm like, well, the words
fork and shirt
are going to come out of my mouth. So yeah, that's an interesting thing. Also, yeah, I've definitely had situations where I've had to endure more stuff. Case in point, part of the reason that the hysterectomy happened is because I had absolutely terrible cramps where I would just kind of chant swear words to deal with it, and it helped.
So it's also interesting to note that in previous studies of profanity's effect on pain relief, participants who typically don't swear often reported the largest benefit, perhaps because they attach a higher emotional value to profanity. So yeah, when you're going for it, it's okay to swear maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting one, and I thought it was also pertinent because we know that Fern likes to swear a good bit.
Yes. I love her.
So you have thing of the week. What'd you pick this week?
Okay, couple different things. One, advent calendars. I really don't care what's in it. Pick something that appeals to you. We have done socks, we have done crochet, we have done dice multiple times. I have a tea advent calendar that I buy nearly every year. There are art supply calendars, there are other different things. I've had some that are massive duds. The thing about it is, you do not base the value of the advent calendar on the monetary value of what's in it. You base the value of the advent calendar on it giving you some form of emotional something. Whether that last year was kind of just seeing what kind of train wreck was coming out of that art one that I had, which may have been more for beginners, but also like I feel like if you can avoid getting crappy materials as a beginner and like actually get nice things, maybe a few nice things, not as many as maybe you'd like, you'll develop a love for the thing more than if you have to struggle with the materials you are given. Digression. But I think that there is something to be said about giving yourself a little burst of happy, and it could be that you get a subscription instead, like a something is going to arrive that you have no control over exactly what it is, and it can surprise and delight you. I think you got to go into it with the attitude of I can't control what's in it. And if it doesn't delight you, finding a way to make lemonade out of what you think are lemons. I got an adorable little advent calendar with amigurumi materials to make these cute patterns that are not necessarily my style. And I worked in my brain to adjust them. And so instead of them just being cute little woodland creatures with outfits that I don't really care about, I have made them into cute little woodland creatures with Ghibli inspired kind of bounding outfits. I think that that gives you a jumping off point more than a be all end point. But I think despite the fact that at this point we know what some of our future doors are going to be in our dice advent calendar, because we are very clearly missing 2 of the dice for one of the sets. We don't know exactly when they're going to happen and what exactly is going to show up, but I think that's part of it. Maybe it's not something you would have chosen. Maybe like picking out a book with the cover obscured. You pick something because the idea of it is lovely and you go into it with that attitude. Maybe this wasn't to my taste exactly, but I really love the idea behind it. And I'm going to take a little bit of time to make it even more delightful for me. Or don't. Or just accept what you get and be happy with what you get. Go into it with the attitude of like, I'm going to go for something where the idea and the concept makes me happy. And that can be enough.
And 2?
And 2. I do have a 2. I love you. The other thing that I highly recommend as a thing of the week, play into your strengths when it comes to things like wrapping presents. And I say this as a person who is looking at the most ridiculously wrapped thing. We have our Christmas tree out right now in the room that we record in. And you know what? Wrapping presents isn't everybody's forte, and a lot of the time it's very frustrating. So I highly encourage bags. Now, sometimes things are big. And we have, this is a huge throwback because the company no longer exists, but like if you ever went to a convention in the mid 2000s, We Love Fine had the most gigantic bags. And we still have at least one of these things. And it is staring at me in the face with a box on the inside of it and a piece of tissue paper, or rather 4 pieces of tissue paper draped nicely over the rest of the box. And you know what? That is the most delightfully intriguing thing in this whole room for me. And by the time that you hear this, Christmas will have passed. I really hope that, we can bring a little bit of light and levity to the time between Christmas and New Year's for you. But oh my God, I want to know what's in that box. And the rest of everything is nicely wrapped and cute and whatever, and I am intrigued a little bit by everything that's around. But that's the thing, the ridiculous lampshaded thing. So my recommended thing definitely is play into your strengths, because what Will did for me is made this thing that is incredibly ridiculous, and it is delightful as hell.
You're welcome.
And it's going to drive me crazy for 3 or 4 days.
Well, with that, I'd like to thank you for potting with me.
Thank you for potting with me.
And thanks for listening to Tales from the Waystone. Join us next time as we continue the summer reading program series with chapters 25 through 30 of Bookshops and Bonedust.
We would like to thank our friend Shawnee Jang for our theme music.
And many thanks to Travis Baldree for creating this universe that we're exploring.
Audio production, editing, and begging you to join our Discord and or our Patreon, courtesy of me, Phoenix McCullough.
And writing and project management, courtesy of me, Will McCullough.
If you would like to help support us and have the means to do so, no judgment if you don't, no requirements. Patreon.com/WaystonePod, or just like we have so many links to the Discord, go ahead and join and enjoy the memes and maybe suggest more books. Oh, speaking of books, I'm burying this here, but we'll probably talk about it next time. Our next one is almost certainly going to be Monk and Robot. We're just going to combine both books together and make one long 7-week thing instead of trying to parse a tiny book into a 7-week thing. But there you go. And with that, here's to one more day above the roses.
To one more day above the roses, and we'll see you in 2026.
Ding! Brain is just having meltdowns of trying to actually do the thing I want to do.
Let's sail this ship into the quiet waters of Riddlin Bay.